Welcome to the final module of the Advanced Telling Time series. In this fourth and last module, we will start to do some mathematical calculations using time. Time for mathematics. When doing mathematic calculations with time, including adding and subtracting time, in other words, elapsed time, you need to think about what the question is asking you to do. Sometimes it is easier to do your calculations in 24-hour time. Sometimes it also makes sense to draw out a clock to help you. Sometimes it makes sense to convert everything to minutes and then back again. Here's how to draw a clock in a quick and simple demonstration. First thing, you need to draw a circle. Step 2, label the numbers 12, 6, 9, and 3. Start with these numbers because they're on opposite sides of each other. Think of them also like poles on a map. Start off with 12 at the top or the north, 6 at the bottom or south, 9 for the west, and 3 for the east. This is the best way of landmarking where all of the numbers are going to go. Step 3, label the inside numbers, starting with 1, then 2, 4, 5, 7, 8, and finally 10 and 11. Now you have your clock completely done. Isn't it amazing? Being able to convert time between the different units is a very important skill. Knowing that an hour is 60 minutes and so forth can help you figure out more complicated math problems involving time. The movie is 216 minutes long. I want to know how many hours that is. The first thing I would do is write that 1 hour equals 60 minutes. Just like that. The next thing I would do is figure out how many groups of 60 I can take out of 216. You can use subtraction or division to figure this out. In the subtraction method, we first write down how many minutes we have, 216. The next thing we need to do is start subtracting groups of 60 out of that first number. So 216 minus 60 is 156. If I take another group of 60 out, so 156 subtract 60 is 96. And once again, 96 subtract 60, and I'm left with 36. So therefore, I need to count how many groups of 60, how many hours I took out of 216 minutes, starting off with 1, then 2, and 3. I have 3 hours, and what do I have left? 36 minutes. So 216 minutes is actually 3 hours and 36 minutes long. If I use division, I need to use the division frame, 216 divided by 60. With using the division algorithm, I need to know that 3 times 6 is 18, and of course with the 0 and 60, 18 times 10 is 180. Now 216 subtract 180 is 36. That is the remainder yet again. So on the top of the frame I have 3 hours, and on the remainder is 36 minutes. So I get 3 hours and 36 minutes once again. Anytime you have to convert between time units, just remember how many groups you are taking out. Keep track. Subtraction will work all the time, but it is slower and you can make mistakes that are hard to catch. Division requires that you understand what the remainder means, but it generally takes less time. Now you try. I will give you a couple of questions. Pause the video and work them out on your own. Then press play and I will show you how I would solve them, and we can compare notes after you have done them yourself. Remember to keep the conversions handy that you wrote down from the beginning of this video series and in your concept cards. How many weeks are there in 93 days? Pause the video and figure it out. Are you ready to figure it out now? Let's go ahead. I would write down 1 week equals 7 days. I have 33 days and I need to figure out how many weeks there are. Using my subtraction method, I will take groups of 7 days out of 33. 33 subtract 7. I need to regroup. I'm left with the 2 in the tens, and I have 10 ones, so 13 minus 7, and 2 minus 0 is 26. Regrouping is very important to keep in mind when you are doing any sort of subtraction or addition. 26 subtract 7, I need to regroup again, so I'm left with 16 minus 7 and 1 minus 0. Which leaves me with 19. 19 subtract 7, I do not need to regroup again, and I'm left with 12. 12 minus 7, we don't need to regroup that one because 12 minus 7 is 5. So now I need to count how many weeks I used in doing this calculation. 1 week, 1 week, 1 week, 1 week, for a total of 4 weeks altogether. However, I still have my 5, and that is how many days are left over that don't fit into a week. So in fact, there are 4 weeks and 5 days in 33 days. I can use division as well, writing my division frame and remembering that 1 week equals 7 days. I put my 33 days inside the frame. 33 is divided by 7. Thinking about multiplication when doing division is very helpful. I know that 4 times 7 is 28. So in fact, when I get down to it, I have to regroup because 33 minus 28, and I'm left with this regrouping, carrying the 1, 13 minus 8 and 2 minus 2, I'm left with 5. So 4 times 7 equals 28. If I do the subtraction and the division, I'm left with a remainder of 5. And that remainder is the 5 days that don't fit into a week. So once again, there are 4 weeks and 5 days in 33 days. Please feel free to rewind and listen to that explanation again if you need it. Here's another example. How many seconds are there in 4 minutes and 23 seconds? Please pause the video and try to figure it out on your own. Are you ready to go? The first thing I need to do is remember that 1 minute equals 60 seconds. So I have 4 minutes, but I need to know how many seconds are in 4 minutes. So I need to do some multiplication. So 4 times 60 equals what exactly? Now, I know that 60 is actually 6 times 10. So my question really is 4 times 6 times 10. And I know that 4 times 6 is 24. I also know that anything times 10 is that thing with a 0 at the end. So 24 times 10 is really 240. So 4 minutes times 60 seconds actually equals 240 seconds. But that's not the end of our question, because I have 240 seconds plus the 23 seconds that I had at the beginning, for a total of 263 seconds. So in fact, there are 263 seconds in 4 minutes and 23 seconds. Now let's move on to elapsed time. Elapsed time is that concept of time passing. Elapsed time is probably one of the most complicated things you'll do with time mathematics. Knowing when events finish is very important to people's lives. It allows us to plan effectively to get things done in our day. It can mean the difference between making your flight to Disneyland or missing your flight and being sad that you missed your trip. Elapsed time is the calculation of how much time has gone by. You can think of elapsed time as looking into the future or looking into the past. It's almost like time traveling. It is tricky, but all you have to do is stop and think. Slow down. Use your time wisely. What time will it be? What time will it be in 3 hours and 40 minutes from the time shown on the clock? There are a number of ways of figuring this out. You can use the clock and count it out. You could use math to calculate the elapsed time. You could use a T-chart, or you could use a number line. Any one of these strategies will get you the answer, and it all depends on which one you find most comfortable. Considering what time it will be in 3 hours and 40 minutes, using the clock method and counting it out, first we have our clock. If we start with the minutes and count 40 minutes off, skip counting by fives, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, our minute hand will be moving to the 7. Then we need to figure out the hours. So the clock is almost 9 o'clock. So if we count the hours out, we end up being somewhere between 12 and 1. And in fact, the time is 12:35. Alright, let's try another method. Let's use math to calculate the elapsed time. What time is it? Using the digital time, we know that it is 8:55 a.m. So let's split the hours and the minutes up. We have the 8 hours and 55 minutes on the other side. Now let's add the hours and add the minutes from our problem. We have 3 hours that we're adding to 8 and 40 minutes that we're adding to 55, which leaves us with 11 hours and 95 minutes. But that doesn't make sense, because we have more than 60 minutes. So we need to regroup the minutes and convert them to hours and minutes. 95 minutes actually equals 1 hour and 35 minutes. So in this case, we need to add the hours back over, which gives us our answer, 12:35. Okay, here is another method. We can use a T-chart. T-charts are very effective tools in mathematics, and you can use them in a number of different ways. Here is a way that you may not have thought of with using elapsed time. First, we need to realize what time it actually is, and it is 8:55 a.m. So writing our t-chart out, we put 8:55 in one column. So now we need to add the time in segments. So if we add an hour, our time will be 9:55. We add another hour, our time will be 10:55. One more hour, 11:55. Now we need to add in our minutes. So I find it easy to add 5 minutes to make it an easy number to deal with, and in fact dealing with 12 o'clock is much easier than 11:55. Then we add the remaining minutes, the 35 minutes, and we end up with 12:35 again. Making sure that we are showing our work. T-charts are excellent for showing work. Plus, we are forced to keep track of every step that we make, so that makes it easier to keep track of what it is that we've actually done. Our final method, and one that I'm quite happy with, is the number line. First, we need to look at what time it is. It is 8:55 a.m. Draw out a number line. You can put the ticks in as you go. You can draw it out just like this. Whatever works for you is perfectly acceptable. At the very front of the line, we need to write our time, 8:55. I find it easier to do the jumps for the number line starting with the largest chunks. So let's make the first jump of 1 hour. It gives us to 9:55. We add one more hour, 10:55. Our final and third hour brings us to 11:55. And now if we segment it back again, if we add 30 minutes, that brings us to 12:25, and we have 10 more minutes to add in, and that brings us to 12:35 again. You can chunk however you want in the number line as long as it makes sense to you, and as long as you keep track of every step that you make. The nice thing about using these last two methods is you are showing your work all the time. So when your teachers ask you, show your work, presto, it's already done. Here we have a problem of how much time has passed between 7:50 on the left to 11:10 on the right. Probably the easiest way of figuring this out is using a timeline. So draw out your timeline. Put the time in that you are starting with, in this case 7:50, and now start adding the time in to see when you get to 11:10. Let's add 10 minutes, because 7:50 is not an easy number, an easy time to deal with. And if we add 10 minutes, we actually make it to 8 o'clock. That's easy for me to understand. Let's add another hour, brings us to 9 o'clock. Another hour again, brings us to 10 o'clock. One final hour brings us to 11 o'clock. And then all we need to do is add the final 10 minutes, and we end up with 11:10. So adding all of the time together, we end up with 3 hours and 20 minutes have passed. This is an excellent way of being able to utilize elapsed time in a way that makes perfect visible sense, and it is an easy way of keeping track of every step that you make. How long is my flight? My flight took off at 7:45 a.m. and landed at 3:05 p.m. How long was my flight? You can totally use a number line, as in the previous examples. It is reliable and shows you exactly what is going on and if you are careful, it will always work for you. Here is a mathematical method that uses subtraction, but you need to be very careful. You need to be careful if you borrow or regroup from the hour time. Remember, 1 hour is equal to 60 minutes. When you regroup, you need to add 60 to the total number of minutes, not 10 as you may be used to doing in regular subtraction. Also, make sure to use 24-hour time. So in this problem, 3:05 becomes actually 15:05. Remember that when we are doing subtraction like this, we need to convert our PM time into military or 24-hour time. So 3:05 PM plus 12 hours, remember, equals 15:05 hours. When we subtract our starting time, which is 7:45 hours, we can do this quite easily. However, if you're noticing, there is a problem. We're subtracting 45 minutes from 5. This is impossible. So we need to borrow or regroup 1 hour from the 15 hours. Borrowing 1 hour from the 15 changes the problem and makes it look like this. First, we take 1 hour away from the 15 and take those 60 minutes and add them to the 5 minutes that we have already. So now the problem can be written like this: 14 hours, 65 minutes, subtract 7 hours, 45 minutes. Since the top number is larger than the lower number, you can go ahead and subtract as you would. When you do the calculation, you find out that you are left with 7 hours, 20 minutes. So in fact, my flight was 7 hours and 20 minutes long. Utilizing 24-hour time like this is a great time saver in terms of making your calculations with elapsed time more efficient. Using a number line, as has been previously demonstrated, will always give you the answer. It just might take you a little bit longer time. There are many different strategies to solving elapsed time problems. Find a strategy that works for you and use it well. Make sure that you show your work when solving problems. That way you can backtrack to see where you made a mistake if things go poorly. All you need to do is slow time down and think. Congratulations! You are now finished Part 4 of our Advanced Time Telling Module series. This concludes the Advanced Telling Time modules. Please feel free to continue practicing with your parents. See you in class!